Hi, I'm Jane, and together with Jodes, we are two proud feminists passionate about female empowerment. This podcast is our take on the real conversations, real issues, and real challenges we must stay focused on if we're going to inspire the next generation of female leaders, managers, and entrepreneurs to pick up the baton and continue the journey to equality. But be warned, there will be rants and the odd profanity, but mainly just lots of curious conversations, uplifting stories, great guests, and food for thought on the path we still have to travel. It is clear that our young girls need us to harness our gumption and to use our voices now to make the changes we all know need to happen. It's time to be a pioneer, not a passenger. To paraphrase the famous words of a female game changer, Hollywood's iconic Bette Davis, fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Series 3. We're very excited to be back once again with another set of 6 episodes for you. And this series is all about women and work. Does it? We're asking that question. Does women and work actually work? I know it sounds like a bit of a funny question, but actually it's a really kind of interesting topic for us to start to get under the skin of, isn't it, Jane, for this one? Because, we've talked...
It certainly is.
Yeah, we've talked about it in our experiences. We're going to share some of those with you today, but you might be sitting there thinking, really? Is this even a question? So I think the first thing for us to do today is really sort of outline what are some of the challenges that present themselves for women in a work capacity, because actually we've kind of lifted the lid on that a little bit, haven't we? And I think these are the things that will resonate with people. So I know you've got a bit of a list there on the go, haven't you, Jane? What are some of the things that we've outlined?
Yeah. I mean, I hope that none of these are surprises to any of us,
no.
but it's just worth thinking about some of the stuff and, as it develops. So we all know there's still discrimination. There's still, inequalities in the world of work. But, do we know that pregnancy discrimination is still really high? So like 1 in 9 women will be discriminated against when they say they're pregnant. Some of them will lose their jobs, even though that's illegal. Some of them will still be let go. Some of them will not come back to the same job. They'll be demoted immediately when they come back. So,
I've got my own personal story on that one. I'll share with us later.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've still got an awful lot of that going on. We still got lack of progress beyond middle management. So you go into any organisation, and I'm not just talking about companies here, any organisation, women do brilliantly till maybe top middle.
Yeah.
And then they disappear. And, there can be lots of reasons for that. And we are going to discuss it in one of the episodes. There was something that I saw that I was talking to you about a few weeks ago. It was in Grazia magazine. It just made me giggle, saying that a lot of big city firms have come up with this new benefit for women in work. And it's all about them being given the opportunity on private health to have their eggs frozen. And it just made me giggle. When did we ask for that? No. Is that what we really want? Do we really want organisations to give us private health to freeze our eggs? Well, because for me that feels a bit divisive.
I know, and it's that's it, isn't it? Is who decided that should be a benefit?
Yeah, who decided we wanted that? So I think the question that we're asking throughout this series is, what do we want? Yeah. What do we want? What do we really, really want?
And I think that's a big question, isn't it? As one of the first things I talked about when I wrote my book is a lot of the women I do speak to, me included, I'm not excluding myself from this, is one of the first questions I'll ask them is, what is it that you want? And I always get one of 2 answers. The first might be, I don't know. So maybe that resonates with you if you're listening. If somebody says to you, what do you want? You actually, do you know what? I don't really know what I want. Or the other option is they proceed to tell me everything that they don't
want.
Like, that's not the question. The question wasn't what don't you want. Yeah. The question was, what do you want? And I think when we've touched on the topic before, some of the superwoman like little aspects of some of us, that we're so focused sometimes on sorting out what everybody else wants and making sure they get their wants and needs met. that we haven't given it the flipping time of day.
Yeah. No, you're right. And also, that's also because we're still carrying the load for most of our life decisions, aren't we? So if we're a mother, we are still the primary childcare provider, supporter. If we've got aging parents, guess who's looking after them? We still do over 75% of all the household chores, and the mental and the emotional side of that as well. So quite often what we want is kind of like not possible, because if you are, that's why I think we struggle with the question, because if we were really honest, I think we would know what we wanted, but what we've done is we've written it off immediately, because we've gone, well, I want that, but it's not possible. Well, what I really want is that, but I'm not going to be able to make it work. What I really want
or
is,
I feel bad for wanting it.
yes, yeah, guilt,
feel bad or guilty,
that lovely guilt that comes in.
Just gonna swallow it and squash it on down to the point that I end up in denial about it and can't get rid of it.
Absolutely. So we've also talked about what's happened to women post-COVID. So that's also a challenge as well that we're now facing. And this issue of progression up this ladder, and these organizations that tend to be male coded, and it's very hard for women to not only survive but excel in a structure that's coded male. So we're going to talk about that as well.
We will.
So those are kind of some of the things that are challenges for us still, that I'm sure we're going to touch on.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the one that really stood out for me a little bit, that you know, when we've asked other people, you know, what do women go to work for? And there'll be many an opinion on that. Oh, women just want a little bit of pin money, haven't they? Or no, you want, or they want to be the big boss, or well, you want a career until you've got kids, but then now all of a sudden you want this work-life balance. Or actually the whole thing of, well, you know, I think one of the big messages I got as I was kind of climbing the corporate career ladder in my 20s was, all of a sudden I was allowed to have it all. A couple of things around that. It's number one, what even is it all? Yeah. And
don't remember asking for it.
Yeah. But all of a sudden I was like, oh, well, apparently I can have it all. So I better be doing something that shows everybody that I'm going after it all. And it was crackers, because I hadn't even stopped to think about, well, what is all? It's not the same for everybody, is it?
No, and it's a very patronizing thing to have said to you, isn't it? I remember the first time that was said to me, it was at a network, you know, by a lovely white male, stale, bald, portly gentleman. And I remember him saying to me, well, dear, I mean, you know, you asked for it all. And so now you can have it all, you know, your career and house and kids. So good luck with that. Off you go. And I was like a little bit, oh, I don't remember asking. I don't even know what it is. But it was this kind of patronizing way it was said to me, in terms of like, well, you wanted it, so you've got it, so jog on, go make it work.
You've kicked up a fuss. Right, you've kicked up a fuss, because remember we did say that as a young girl you shouldn't be making a fuss, but you've bloody done it anyway. You've made a fuss, so now you can bear the consequences of making that fuss.
Absolutely.
So if you want your cake and eat it, let's shove all that cake in your mouth in one fat go and see how you get on.
And I think a lot of women are still, you know, that's still going on in their kind of mindset. Which is, you know, why they're probably not saying what they really, really want. They're just accepting what they get.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, actually, especially with the post-COVID thing, you know, where we've almost like COVID gave us a bit of a sigh of relief, but then went the wrong way, because we ended up trying to spin all the plates. It felt like a bonus to be able to work flexibly, but it was just another way to get even more stuff done. And now it's backfiring when the world's kind of trying to get back to some kind of rhythm, let's call it. I'm not going to say normality, because I don't know what that is anymore, but to some kind of rhythm. And actually, you know, what I think what most women I speak to now, and this, I say this for myself as well, is actually now I feel like I need to whisper and go, I'd quite like to just not be as busy as I am anymore, and do you know, having it all for me now would look like not doing that much, to be honest. And when I say not that much, I don't mean doing nothing. I mean not that much, that much.
Something
a little bit more manageable. and some free time.
Yeah, that'd be nice, wouldn't it?
That'd be nice.
That'd be lovely.
That'd be
So
nice.
this kind of like this question then that we're asking throughout this whole series, Women and Work, does it? Jodes, Women and Work, does it and has it worked for you?
Bloody hell. You know what? It's probably been up and down over the years. But, you know, when you were talking at the beginning there about some of the challenges we face, you know what? I set off into a career really young, did dead well, like accelerated quite early on. Like I was in a middle management role when I was 20. And you know, I look back now and I think, oh God, crimes, which numpty gave me that job? Because I thought it was the bee's knees. And when I look back now, it makes me cringe. I was the crappiest manager going. But actually, what I came to learn later on in life was it was actually at a christening. Some woman who I used to work with had a few too many sherbets and decided to tell me that the only reason I had that job was because I was the office totty.
Oh, brilliant.
And you know, the male management team at the time quite enjoyed having something nice to look at in the monthly management meetings and the weekly meetings, which was lovely. So that wasn't ideal. And actually, you know, I was one of those 1 in 9 that was at the raw end of, you know, pregnancy discrimination. And that, you know, that was really unpleasant. That massively impacted my career path, the pace at which I moved. You know, don't need the details on it, but it was a full-on issue that went through the motions, let's say, and it resulted in me leaving an organization that I'd built a really strong career in.
Wow.
You know, and they'd done things that were wrong. That weren't right.
Did you have them?
Yes, absolutely, I had them.
Good.
But equally, though, I was sad that even though I felt like there were consequences for what they'd done, I still didn't get what I wanted in that situation. I was quite happy in that business and I liked my career. And what that ultimately meant was I ended up having to walk away from that organisation, all right, with essentially, you know, a few bob in my pocket. But I wanted to carry on. I had to go and start again somewhere else. And for me, when it all really did start to work was when I took matters into my own hands and began working for myself, because then I was able to do a lot more things on my terms. But it took me kind of 3 attempts in my head to really go for it. What I mean is I got opportunities earlier on to leave and set up on my own, but I didn't have the confidence to do it. So I chickened out. For over about 6 years. It took me 6 years to have the confidence to go and do that. And then, yes, it has worked for me since then, but only because I've had the gumption.
Do you think that you would, without that happening to you, do you think that you would have gone off and become an entrepreneur anyway?
Yes,
or
it
do you
would have
think
come
you
anyway.
do?
It would have come anyway. But you know, it ended up coming at 32 when really I don't think it would have come until into my 40s, because it's only been since I've been in my 40s that I feel like I've arrived. I know myself. I feel like I finally got the identity I was meant to have, and I've let go a bit more, not entirely, of what other people might think about me. So I'm a bit more sod it now.
And how do you feel about that word entrepreneur?
Kind of, I like it. I get a bit excited about it. Sometimes I don't always believe I'm it. But as the years go by, I definitely do. I step into it more and more and more as each year goes by. 5 years ago, no, I would just call myself self-employed or freelance. I would have thought, if I met someone at a networking, they'd be like, oh yeah, I'm a freelancer. I've had the goal actually to say, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, because that sounds like I should be earning multi-million pounds.
I ask you because it is a word a lot of women really find uncomfortable. You know, even though they are entrepreneurs and they're running big businesses and they're employing people and they're taking risks and they're creating things, which is what an entrepreneur is. They're still like, oh, I don't know whether I'm an entrepreneur. Well, what are you then? You know, they really struggle with that word. Again, it feels very male. It feels very, it feels like Branson. It feels like I should be Branson. Branson's
like uber powerful, and like a bit ruthless, and
Yeah.
I don't know what that noise represents, but
I'm with you. Yeah.
a bit,
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. But good, I'm glad you're happy.
What about you? What about you?
What work? Does it work?
As it works.
Does it work? Does it work? Well, I mean, I like you, I was very young. I was successful very young. So I was working from 16. You know, I was earning big money at 21. I had a big team at 25. And it's really interesting when I look back. I'm pretty sure there was some male codedness in the organizations that I worked. I am absolutely adamant. I'm pretty sure that somewhere along the line there could have been some discrimination, but you know what? I never even stopped to even clock it because I was so driven and I was so motivated by money and I was so motivated by success because I was kind of on a mission to prove to my dad that I could make it without him. And so that drove me beyond anything and I didn't even really notice it. And I reached kind of like my late 20s and I was exhausted. And I remember thinking, oh, I can't just keep working at this pace. And if I'm going to work at this pace, I'm going to do it on my terms.
Yeah.
So clearly something was going on, but I couldn't really define it. And then I set up my first business at 29 and I've been a serial entrepreneur ever since. And so I've always defined my own values and the way my own organization works and, you know, devise the culture and the mission and so on. And when you do that, then, you know, you define the terms, don't you? So it's a very different scenario. It's still really tough. It's still hard work. I work harder now than I've ever worked.
Yeah.
You know, there's no let up, is there? You know, when you've got a job, sometimes there can be a little bit of a let up when you finish one thing and you start another, or you've hit your targets. There's kind of no such thing when you run your own show.
No, but it's the fact that I get to do something that I decide the purpose, the meaning. You know, when you were talking about the male, and we're going to touch on male coded and female coded, like environments and energies quite a lot in this series and next, aren't we? But yeah, I feel like now I can use a lot more female type energy. You know, I feel more heart led in my work now.
Absolutely.
Like just
money, profit.
Yeah.
And the other thing we were talking about earlier, which again is just something for people to clock, is that we are going to do a whole series on female entrepreneurship, aren't we? Which I think, you know, is so important because these days there's so many women setting up their own businesses and doing their own stuff. And, you know, we talk about this middle management leak in this episode and this series, and that's one of the things that women are going off to do. It's like, I'm going to chart my own path here. So we're both really looking forward to that as we're both entrepreneurs to be able to share that.
That's
talk through.
Probably the perfect point actually to say a little bit about what this series is going to have in store. So obviously this episode sets the scene. Women and Work does it. We've shared our experiences a little bit. We've talked about, you know, what are some of the challenges that exist. Maybe you've got some more you'd want to throw into the mix on that. I'm sure they'll all come out the wash as we work through this series. But yes, this series is also going to be the first time we bring some guests into the podcast.
So excited.
We are going to have 2 guests in a couple of the episodes. Well, not 2 guests in a couple. That's not 4 guests. It's 2 guests.
Well, it is 4 guests. Last episode.
It will. We've got a special surprise at the end. I'm going to leave that one as a bit of a surprise and just tell you the title of that episode. But yeah, throughout this series, we're going to be talking about institutionalised sexism and misogyny, which we have got a very special guest in from Greater Manchester Police to talk to us a bit about that. We're also going to be, discussing the female middle management leak and what's really going on behind that and how we start to deal with some of that to start to make some changes there. Our second guest will be joining us to talk about, you know, kind of discussing, have we parked the women's network agenda, you know, and has the whole broader D&I agenda replaced that, and what's the impact on the voice of women moving forward because of that? So that's an interesting conversation. We will be talking about male coded environments, and we're going to talk about the corporate game in this series as well. It's important for us to understand what that game is so that we can do things to change it. And then, yeah, we will be wrapping up this series with a fabulous episode that all I'm going to say is it's called Two Good Men. Have to hang on to your seats and stay with us to find out a little bit more about what that is. So I hope you'll be looking forward to those. But in the meantime, we always like to finish each episode with a little bit of something to think about. So if we're talking about these broader challenges, what is our food for thought to get people ready for the rest of this series, Jane?
Yeah, so I mean, the first thing is I would imagine, is to educate ourselves on some of these subjects. I mean, we've kind of just thrown them in, but sort of find out how that's working in your organisation. So, have you parked the female agenda in DNI, and how's that working? You know, what is that kind of scenario in terms of sexism and misogyny in your organisation? Have you got zero tolerance on it? Does it exist? What's the consequences? Is it being called out? You know, kind of educate yourself around that. That male-coded environment, is it? Can you see that? Can you see that it's male-coded? Can you see it in the language that's used? Can you see it in the values? Can you see it in the structure? You know, kind of ask some key questions, look at it, step back from it a little bit. And then also demand transparency on all of that. Ask the questions and see what you get. You know, is it being covered? Can you see exactly what's happening? Even on equal pay, have you got transparency on that?
That's exactly when you said that transparency, that was the one that popped in my head is, you know, it's kind of like the elephant in the room still in a lot of organizations. I have women that say to me, I bet he's paid loads more than me. Well, let's tell you what, let's not guess and wind ourselves up about that. Actually, it could be that there's nothing to get wound up about. But equally, if we let's know the facts. So it's about those questions.
So it's about, you know, educating ourselves, demanding transparency, and it's always the one that we come back to on every single episode. It's about sisterhood. It's about helping each other call it out. It's about supporting each other in those situations. You know, it's about amplification. It's about, you know, if a woman says something in a meeting, you know, rather than it get lost and then the guys pick it up and then it becomes their idea. This thing called amplification was used in the Obama Senate, where a female senator might say something and then the other women would go, "That's a brilliant idea, Jodes," and kept referring to it in that way so it couldn't be stolen. And that's the simple thing that we need to be doing for each other. So we need to be each other's champions. So we need to educate ourselves, demand transparency, and support each other in that cause. So that's some things to think about from what we talked about in our intro. Our next episode is one where we've got our first guest on, which Joe said we're excited about. So we're talking about institutionalised sexism and misogyny. And who better to discuss that with than one of the most senior female police officers in the UK. That's Chief Superintendent Nikki Porter, who works for Greater Manchester Police. Nikki's a big sister at Girls Out Loud. She's a massive advocate for women, and she's going to come along and share her views and her experience of that with us at the next episode. So we're very excited about that.
Oh, what a juicy series we've got in store. So yes, stick with us and we look forward to sharing more with you. So I think we will see you in episode 2, won't we, Jane?
We will indeed.
All right, have a good one.
You have been listening to Jane and Jodes on One. Until next time, remember, sisterhood matters. Together, we are bold, brave, fierce, and unstoppable.